Welcome to the West Block from Ottawa on this Sunday, September the 9th. I'm Tom Clark. On this first show of the second season, a West Block exclusive, a Canadian alternative to the F-35 is on the table. The legendary Avro Arrow, could it fly again? Why a prominent military man says, yes, it could. And Canada cuts diplomatic ties with Iran. Why now? We've got two of the brightest minds on the subject. And from protest to power, we talk to the former student leader who was elected as the youngest member of the new separatist government in Quebec. But first, our West Block exclusive. In the midst of the heated debates about the F-35, the Canadian government was quietly presented with another option, a Canadian option. In fact, a Canadian legend. The proposal? Resurrect the Avro Arrow. Here is your weekly West Block primer.
This is the Avro Arrow, Canada's entry into the supersonic era.
The story has become a Canadian legend.
Design specifications were based on requirements for Royal Canadian Air Force fighters of the future.
Developed in the 1950s to counter the threat of Soviet bombers, the Arrow was poised to become the fastest and most advanced interceptor bomber in the world. Canadian design, Canadian built. But the U.S. government wanted Canada to buy American fighters. And so, with a few incentives, it convinced Ottawa to scrap the plan. And it did, literally, ordering all documentation, plans, and prototypes destroyed. But thanks to some engineers who ignored the order, most of the plans survived, and now a Canadian company, Bordeaux Industries, wants the Arrow to fly again. The government says that the F-35 is the only jet that meets the military's requirements. But Bordeaux says a Canadian option, the new and improved Avro Arrow, would be a better fit. According to Bordeaux's numbers, if both planes left Vancouver, the F-35 could make it to Winnipeg on one tank of gas, while the Arrow could make it almost all the way to Toronto. But it would get there a whole lot faster. The group says that the Avro Arrow would literally fly circles around the F-35. Flying at 3,800 kilometers per hour, the Arrow is twice as fast as the F-35. The 20-year life cycle cost for 100 Avro Arrows would be about $12 billion. For just 65 F-35s, it would be more than double that, $25 billion. Despite these numbers, the Canadian government has rejected the proposal, saying it's just too risky to consider. For now, the Avro Arrow is grounded once again. Well, joining me now, one of the main proponents for this project and perhaps Canada's best-known soldier, retired Major General Louis McKenzie. General McKenzie, thanks very much for being here.
My pleasure, Tom.
Let's make one thing very clear right from the beginning. Do you have a financial interest in this project?
Absolutely not. I even thought it was a joke when it was first presented to me, when Marc Bordeaux, Bordeaux Industries, came to the house and said, look, I have an idea for a replacement for the CF-18. I said, great, and then I looked at it, saw what it was, and I looked around for candid camera. I thought I was being set up for bloopers or something, but not a penny. I'm a patriot. I, from the very beginning, have had my serious doubts about the applicability of the F-35, a compromise aircraft, to the roles that Canada is going to require to carry out in the next 30 years, and so I was happy to try and get the plan itself in front of people like the Minister of National Defense or the PM office or whatever.
So, but why specifically this? I mean, a lot of people would say, come on, you're taking a 1950s designed aircraft and trying to say 50 or 60 years later that this is going to be a better aircraft than something designed today.
Yeah, and it funnily enough, in speed and altitude it is, but let's face it, a lot of things have changed in the last 50 years. That aircraft wouldn't be the replacement for the CF-18. It's an evolution of this particular. That was model Mark I and Mark II back in 58, 59. It would be a Mark III and a Mark IV. Upgraded technology, upgraded materials, any number of things to improve upon the original Avro Arrow. But the basic design and platform still today exceeds anything that's on the books or anything that's flying by way of a fighter. Easily more than the F-35, because quite frankly, the F-35, as an Australian senator pointed out, shouldn't be the F-35, it should be the A-35.
What's the difference there?
It's an attack aircraft. It's designed for attacking ground targets, and its stealth is most effective against short-range radar protecting ground targets. What we need in Canada is something that can go to the edge of our airspace from a sovereignty point of view and be able to catch up with intruders. I mean, we have an aircraft that wouldn't be able to catch up. And if it loiters on station too long, it won't be able to get home to an airfield.
Well, let's get back to the Arrow for a second, because one of the other criticisms of this may be you're taking the F-35 untested high-risk airplane and replacing it with another untested high-risk airplane, the revamped Avro Arrow. So what's the advantage in doing that?
Well, the advantage is that, first of all, it's made in Canada, and that $9 billion or $20+ billion over a lifespan would be spent at least 95% in Canada, provide 19,000 jobs, perhaps 120, that's direct jobs, 120,000 indirect jobs. It's ours, and it would have superior capability. Now, the plans already exist. They were to be destroyed. They were ordered destroyed. Funnily enough, people took them home. So Bordeaux Industries has access to those. Some of the original engineers have those plans. Testing was done. And as you know, shortly after the testing began, then the program was shut down. The Avro Arrow program was shut down. But the testing data is there. So there's a fair amount of information that exists that gives you a head start in the development of a Mark III.
Well, let's go to the heart, though, of what the government has said when they turned down this idea. First of all, they said no stealth capability. How can you build an aircraft these days that doesn't have stealth involved with it? And secondly, they're saying interoperability. In other words, if we have an aircraft that can't communicate with American aircraft and we're on a joint operation, how is that to our advantage? But take both of those separately. Stealth.
Stealth, absolutely. What you do is you have to build stealth into the platform as you're putting together the new aircraft, and they've done that with the F-35. Already, anti-stealth has caught up to that and overtaken it. So you're stuck with an aircraft for 30 years that has a capability that a more developed anti-stealth capability can handle. Not only that, you're only stealth from certain directions in certain ways. Rarely are you stealth from above. So wouldn't that be nice if we had an aircraft that was looking down at our opponents and they are not stealth
And you're
anymore?
talking about the Avro Arrow being able to fly much higher.
Much higher, up to 20,000, 30,000 feet higher. Absolutely.
Is there a danger here, though, of being romanced by the legend of the Avro Arrow?
Absolutely.
And that we get blinded both in terms of development and so on? Because I'll tell you what, Julian Fantino, who at the time was the head of procurement for the government, said. He said the risks associated with undertaking this development effort would be too high to consider. And I'm wondering whether that is at the heart of the problem, that we get romanced by the idea, but in fact the risks are way too high.
And Minister Fantino is a good friend. The fact is, he could well be right, but those who assess that risk shouldn't be what are being presented as an impartial committee, the National Fighter Procurement Secretariat, independent committee. Come on, it's chaired by the Deputy Minister of Public Works. It's got representatives from D&D, from Finance, from the Auditor General. I mean, independent from what? I guess from maybe the military making the decision, who shouldn't have made it in the first place. They make recommendations. Recommendations that were statement of requirement that were written after the decision was announced, even though they deny announcing it, by the government that we were going to buy it. So yeah, that's a possibility, but somebody other than Bordeaux Industries, somebody other than the government of Canada, at this stage, I would like to see the aerospace business, manufacturing, business people, put a committee that's truly independent, put a committee like that together and have them look at the practicality of the idea.
Do you think the fix is in for the F-35?
I do. I think I worked in the bureaucracy for a while, only 1 year here in Ottawa, but I know how these things work. And when a submission or a request comes in, it goes down, to the sharp end comments, and then it comes back up and you get your answer. This feasibility study was in the hands of the PMO, the Minister of National Defense, General Lawson, congratulations, now the CDS when he was Deputy Commander of NORAD. I kept getting the same feedback. It was like talking points coming back. I'd like somebody outside the military family and those that support the military family from within the government to at least pass judgment on it and give us an opinion.
So the Avro Arrow may fly again?
Well, not the way it was, but the way it was wouldn't be bad, you know, sort of thing.
General McKenzie, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tom.
Now, we should mention that we contacted the government for an interview on this subject, but it declined. We will continue to follow this story in the coming days. For more news and analysis, pictures and video, keep checking our website, thewestblock.ca, and tune into Global National all week long for more developments. Well, still to come on the West Block, Canada cuts all diplomatic ties with Iran. Is it the right move? A discussion right after this break.